will hand it over to you, Lavinia.
Thank you, Scott. Welcome everybody to our Pathways webinar. As Scott mentioned, this presentation was designed to be a quick guide to just helping everyone to start paving a way to a successful journey in Pathways. I recognize that on this webinar, there may be a varying degree of the level of experience that individuals may have in Pathways. And I tried to design this presentation to kind of fall somewhere in the middle where I can help those who are just beginning and may not have chosen a path to get started, and as well offer some additional guidance and assistance in helping those who have completed one or two levels in their path to have a better success in moving forward and to kind of clear up some of the cobwebs and struggles that you may have. There is a bit of content in trying to cover all that ground, and an hour really isn't as long as we think it is. So I do want to stress, we want to answer any questions that you have, but I'll try to complete the presentation with enough time to be able to answer some of those questions. As questions come up, if you want to shoot them over to Scott, and then he can mention some of those questions, or you can ask those questions at the end. Okay. On our agenda, I want to cover the whole transition going from legacy to Pathways, a quick start guide for getting started in Pathways, and just some recommendations that I have found that works for me in getting the most out of the Pathways experience. And then to just share with you some resources that you can take with you to use as you move forward to continue to answer some questions and get help as you move along. And then, as I mentioned, we'll go into answering some questions about Pathways. So let's start with the transition from legacy to Pathways. Now, I'm not sure how many we do have on the call from legacy. I am from legacy, and I remember the transition into Pathways. It was a bit of a challenge. People were very fearful about Pathways, especially having been so comfortable in what the educational program is in legacy. But before I go into, I'm sorry, I kind of went forward instead of back. Give me 1 second. Okay, let's do this. Okay. So what are the things that I just wanted to really stress for those, especially those coming out of legacy, but it's also important for those who have never experienced Pathways, the legacy program, and when you're going into Pathways to really understand what the educational program is all about. Now, we all know Toastmasters' mission is to help us to become greater communicators, to build our confidence and become leaders. And Toastmasters has been very successful in being able to do that by building an educational program that was built out of 5 core competencies. Well, those core competencies, as you see on the left-hand side of the screen, is public speaking, interpersonal communication, strategic leadership, management, and confidence. Well, what Toastmasters has learned over the years is that while those core competencies are really great to build upon, if you take those competencies and you blend them together in multiple fashions, you actually can reach a broader range of specialties that become more helpful to individuals because we all are on different paths in life. Hence why how we came up, or how the district has come up, well, international has come up with the concept of moving forward in paths, and have designed the 11 paths to mix and match those core competencies in a way that help those individuals who want to be more focused on a particular target to actually move forward in that direction and get the most out of the competencies that help them to build on those skills. On the right-hand side, I kind of charted out where those competencies fit in across the different paths. And this, I think, is helpful, especially when we get to the section on trying to identify what path you want to take move forward in pathways, to really look at where you want to put your focus at and which paths better meet those areas where you want to focus. Overall, in the educational program, Pathways has, right now we have 11 paths. And and as I mentioned, it implements those core competencies based on the level of influence that they have in that particular path. So as you look at the screen, we see the dynamic leadership. It encompasses the core competencies 1, 2, 3, and 5, but they're ranked in order of the emphasis. Well, you may have another path that also focuses on 1, 2, 3, and 5, but you may find that they're in a totally different order, as in persuasive influence, where 3 becomes a greater emphasis in that path than it does in the previous path. On the bottom, I put a website that I thought was very helpful, and this is something that, as we were going through as guides, we were looking for additional resources to help us to better pave the way for the members, because this was new to everybody, including us guides. And some of the previous districts already got an opportunity to embark in the program, and so we wanted to learn from their lessons learned. District 4 has a great website where they have a really good breakdown on how to really manage through what the various paths are and what they offer in the path. I would recommend that everybody take a look at d4tm.org/pathways. It actually is dynamic, and you can click on the multiple paths and then go through each of the projects that are offered in that path and look at how those paths, how those projects are focused in that path. And I find that it's a really good way to kind of map out where you want to go, because sometimes the title of the path is not as clear as what you think it is. And so you may think that your direction that you may want to go is dynamic leadership, but when you start drilling into the dynamic leadership and really looking at what the focuses are, you might find that dynamic leadership really doesn't address the goals that you really want to set out to accomplish. And then you may want to look at something more like motivational strategies, and that may actually meet what your expectations are and what you're looking to accomplish in your goals. I encourage people, when they actually go through and picking a path, to really take their time as they work through picking their path, because this is your educational journey. And you want to make sure that you pick a path that works for you. But as we talk about continuing to transition into pathways, we know what the education is being offered, but one of the things that people struggle with a lot in giving up the legacy is the loss of the value of the competent communication track. And as I studied through all the different paths and really looking at what the paths offer and how to best encourage people or support people as they move on their journey, I found that the communication track is really translated into the presentation mastery path. When you look at the whole makeup of the communication, the competent communication, it was about building on the fundamentals of being a good speaker, being clear and able to present yourself effectively to your audience. But that's exactly what presentation mastery sets out to accomplish. And it's actually, I liken it to a more improved version of the competent communicator, because now it actually allows you to focus on multiple mediums that you can use in presenting and communicating to people. And it gives you a broader range of practice and really being able to master multiple ways of communicating to people. One of the things that I really try to encourage my new members as they join our clubs in Gahanna, and is to, if I would encourage all new members to start with the presentation mastery. And that's because it does build upon the fundamentals. And if you're one of the individuals who have not yet started a path, and have shied away from picking a path, maybe because you don't know which path you want to take, I would encourage you to start off with presentation mastery. If you've been a member in Toastmasters only after the pathways has rolled out, start with presentation mastery. If you're a member of the legacy program but never completed the competent communicator, start with presentation mastery. This is one of the key areas that's going to help you be successful. And then when you start looking at the other paths that are available, you start to see that they are really similar to what we in legacy used to refer to as the advanced communicator manuals. And again, they're all more advanced because they focus on multiple types of medium and ways to further use those skills and reach more people and be more effective as you move along in your journeys. So as we have kind of got a feel of what the educational content looks like in Path, or what we would expect to learn in Pathways, let's talk about getting started in Pathways. When you first log in, the only way that you can access Pathways is through the international website. You would go to the Pathways banner at the top of the banner, and you would click on Pathways to go into Pathways. But when you first go into Pathways, it's going to ask you to pick a path before you can even move into any of the educational content. But one of the things that I have started doing, especially with my newer members, is I would just not necessarily focus on how to actually get into and navigate around Pathways. I want people to get familiar with using the education content within Pathways. And whether you've chosen your path or not, anybody can access the first project, which is the icebreaker. If you click on the main Pathways wording in the drop down, and then scroll all the way down to the bottom of the screen, you'll see where it says sample your first path. And I encourage people to do this because this will allow people to get familiar with just navigating through a project, because there's a whole lot of other functions within the actual module of Pathways. And going through that can be intimidating and frustrating. And what you don't want to do is get frustrated, because Toastmasters is a communication. It's about communicating. It's about learning how to be leaders. So the one thing that you don't want to ruin your success is technology. We can work out the technology, but the most important thing is for you to get the education. And that's where just getting familiar with the education, what working through a project looks like, how the education content is delivered and flow in a project, and just getting familiar with completing a project. The success that you feel just by having say I completed something gives you more motivation to move forward. And it actually gives you more encouragement that you can do this and that you can make this work. And then this also helps you to make progress in moving forward in your educational journey prior to picking a path. And it gives you more time to think about really where you want to go and what you want to do. So as soon as my new members hand me an application, their homework is to go to the main webpage and start their project. And we will work through getting familiar and comfortable with the project itself and start working on delivering their first speech within the first 3 meetings. And that way we help them to start feeling successful. So if you're somebody who has not yet started Pathways, I would encourage you to just start with doing your icebreaker. Don't worry about navigating through Pathways. Don't get fed up with all the different buttons you can push in Pathways. Just start your project and start working on getting familiar and getting a good feel out of the education content.
Hey,
And then
Lavinia.
that way, yes.
I'm sorry. I was trying to get a good spot to just remind people. If you're on your mobile phones, everybody, if you could go on mute, that would be great. I don't have control over those people that are on their mobile phones to mute you. So if you would go on mute, that would be great. So again, people on your mobile phones, we're getting some background noise. I just want to make sure that we're minimizing that for Lavinia.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nope. So then once you really start moving forward and we talk about, let's actually go into the educational portion of managing your journey in Pathways. And you would do that by going into base camp. Now, base camp is where you're going to pretty much spend most of your journey in Pathways, because this is where all of your curriculum is housed. This is how you're going to move from each of your projects and as you move through each of your paths. Now, when you go into base camp, everybody's first screen after selecting the button that says go to base camp may be a little bit different. And it's going to be different depending on your level of where you are in your membership, whether you're a first-time user or if you've never chosen a path, or if you're a base camp manager or in multiple clubs. You may see different screens. Some people will, if they're only in one club, they're not in an officer role, they're not a base camp manager. When they click on base camp, it'll take you right into your educational transcript. But for others, if you're in a multiple club, or if you're a base camp manager, you'll get a different screen that will allow you to do a little bit more functions than what the basic user will use. So I don't want people to get tripped up on what they see necessarily on the first screen that they click after they click go to the camp, because my initial screens are maybe slightly different. But here I kind of shown a mix of what some people may see. So here on the right is where people may just go right into the educational transcript. And then people on the left, other people like base camp managers or people in multiple clubs would get a screen that will have selection boxes similar to what I have on the left of the screen. But regardless of where you go when you click on base camp, you need to make sure that you have your settings set to allow pop-ups. All of the windows, when you start clicking through the different areas in Pathways, will come up as additional windows. So if you have your pop-up blocker set to block pop-ups, you're not going to see the next window. You may click on the link to go somewhere, and you should get a message that says enable pop-ups or that pop-ups are blocked. you would want to, depending on the browser that you're using, you would want to go into your settings to change your settings to allow pop-ups. Some is based on your preferences in some browsers, others is based off of your privacy or security. So it just depends on which browser you're using. But you have to make sure you have your settings set to allow for pop-ups. When you go into your Basecamp, if you're in a multiple club, your educational content really doesn't vary. It does not vary at all, regardless of which club you choose to go into for Basecamp. Basecamp really only becomes a relevant or important item to determine which club you select, but based on your interaction that you want to do in terms of getting feedback within Pathways or giving out badges or requesting for feedback. That whole concept of requesting feedback, getting badges, that's more of an advanced function that we'll do in a different seminar, but I'm not going to go into that aspect of right now because I just want to keep it simple. But just know that it really only matters when which Basecamp or club you choose if you're in multiple clubs if you want to do an interaction. Other than that, you'll see the same transcript, you'll see the same progress, you'll see the same paths or other educational content that you've started within your Pathways journey. They will all remain the same. If you have not picked a path, and it's your first time accessing Pathways, the very first thing that you'll see when you go to Basecamp is a pop-up that will say, hey, you need to select a path. When you go into selecting a path, you'll first be asked how you want to pursue your Pathway journey. The Pathways offers the opportunity to do everything on the website, or some of the paths are offered in print material. I would encourage people to really think through how they want to do their educational journey and recommend that everybody use the digital resources. And the reason why I do that is because there are significant limitations to what you get out of the educational journey via the print material. First of all, you pay an additional $25 if you do the print material, and that $25 is non-refundable. So when you pick a path, you have 30 days to change your mind and say, hey, I want to change this path, I don't like it. If you choose it in the printed material, you lose that $25. The other thing to keep in mind is with the printed material, you're limited to the educational resources that support the material that's being taught in the path. A lot of the online project resources and exercises are not available in the printed version. And so if you get the printed version, but you want to access those additional online resources, you're going to have to pay for another path. Basically, it's going to be another charge of another path. So I would encourage everybody to use the digital resources, and you can still print your material. And the print, when you print it, it comes out looking nice. So if you feel like you are somebody that you need to have the paper, then I would just say go the route, do the digital, and then you can print your project and still have the paper form. But when you click there, you'll see this guide to actually looking at what the advantages and disadvantages are in choosing print or digital, as one of the pieces of information that will pop up on the screen when you go to choose your path. You get to choose your language. Pathways offers its paths in multiple languages. I believe it's something like 10 languages. However, if you do it in print, I believe it's only offered in 2 languages, and it's only offered for, I believe, only like about a few paths that it is offered in. Then after you choose how you want your medium, you're going to be asked to take an assessment. I would encourage you to take the assessment, get a feel of what the questions are that they're asking you, just as a start to thinking of where you want to go in Pathways. And then after your assessment, it is going to give you a recommendation of some paths that you may want to choose. At that point is where I say hold off on choosing. It's going to give you one that says, okay, this is the highest. This one has the highest percentage of a match based off of how you answered the survey. When I think of surveys, especially very limited surveys, it's subjective to how you feel at the moment when you take the survey, what's going on in your life at the moment when you take the survey. So the answers that you give may not be indicative of what you should base a goal on, especially a goal as significant as an educational goal where you're going to be camped in here for a period of time. I would say read through the recommendations that it gives you in terms of your ranks 1, 2, and 3 paths, but then still sit down on your own and start thinking through what your journey is so that you can pick the right path that's more reflective of where you want to go. And at that point, go and come back and pick your path. Because you already, as we started before, you have access to start your icebreaker. So you're not stuck because you didn't choose that path.
Hey, Lavinia, just a quick question on that last slide. Just to verify, if somebody wanted just the print-only version, obviously it's limited to only 5 paths, but it's $45 for that, right? It's $20 for the path plus 25 extra for the printed copies. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And while your first path is free, if you choose the printed option, you still have to pay the additional $25.
Okay,
that is not free.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, so so if you've got an extra path, if you want to buy a second path, that's 20 plus the 25 more, but you get your first path free, right? So Correct. It would be only 25 for that first path.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
And for those of you coming off of Legacy, if you were in a second club prior to the, I guess it was January 2018 launch date, you were eligible for a second path. So you would have to send an email to International requesting for them to activate your second path. You can't choose it through the module because it's only set up to ask you to pay for it. International will have to assign your second path, but that's only if you were a member of a second club before or on the date that Pathways rolled out in District 40.
Which was February 13th, by the way, 2018.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay, February.
Yep.
Okay.
February 13th. And I also put in our chat that I put the phone number to Toastmasters headquarters if anybody had any questions about their paths and how to get print. So I put that in the chat.
Right. And the other thing I just want to make note, like while I mentioned that you have 30 days to change your mind, I really would say you still want to take picking your path really serious and don't take that lightly, 30 days to make an exchange in the path really is not a lot of time. And your path, you would have to have gone through the whole notifying international in writing, having them acknowledge and revoke the old path and do all that, all within that period of time. Because if you cross over that 30-day window and you're still in the original path, it becomes very complicated. And I've heard stories where people were not able to get the refund. So I would say just really select your path carefully and not even have to worry about trying to get through the process of exchanging it. That's just a word of advice. Okay, so my crazy screen that I have up now.
You got arrows all over.
I got arrows all over. This is when you click and let me just step back for a second. Here, when I talked about your educational transcript has all of the paths or other educational projects educational projects not related to a specific path that you've chosen to go on. And again, that's a more advanced topic, the additional trainings that's available in Pathways, and we'll save it for a more advanced session. But when you go into your transcript and you click on open your curriculum, if you've already started your path, if it's your first time, it'll probably say activate, and then you'll get the open curriculum. When you open your curriculum, you will come to your main page for your curriculum on that specific path. And this is actually what you'll see. You'll see a screen that looks like this without all the arrows. So I just wanted to talk about some of the metrics here, because this is good to help you to track your progress and to make sure that you're moving along at a pace that you feel comfortable with. The first part is your path progress, which tells you what percentage of your educational content you've completed in the entire path. So at the time when I took this screenshot, I had completed 34% of the educational content. And then below that, you'll see how you've progressed in terms of what levels you've completed. The red circle with the white check mark tells me that I've completed everything required in that level. So I've completed everything required in level 1 and level 2. And they all have a red circle that's white in the middle with no check mark. That means that I'm active in that level. I have started it, but I have not completed all the requirements. And then the remaining levels that have grayed out circles, these are levels that I still need to get to. When I look in the right side of the curriculum, then I start seeing the details of all the tasks that need to be completed in this level. At the top, you have the metrics of where you are in this particular level. So right now, when I took this screenshot, I have completed 0% of the required task in this level. There's a minimum of 3 tasks in this level that I need to complete in order to complete the level. And so a total of 3 is available. Now, a task is everything that's required. You may have a project that is a project, but it's also a task because that's a requirement that you have to do. Then when you get through levels, some levels have 1 elective, some have 2 electives or 3. The idea that you have to do electives become 1 task. Now, how many electives you have to do will be listed in the actual task. in the task, you'll see how much of that task you've completed, and then what's the requirement to complete this task. Now, this will not change to show that I've completed this task until I've done the minimum required in this task. And the term minimum means that you have to, for electives, for this one, is that you have to take at least 2, but you can take as many more as you want. So if there are 6 electives that you can choose from for this path in this level, you can do all 6 of them if you want. If they all interest you or add to your goal, you can choose to do them all, but you have to do at least 2. And then once you do the minimum required in the task, that task will now become completed. So then once I complete my electives, both electives, I will see that completed number increase by 1 increment. Every level will have a final task called level completion. And this is really important as you go through your levels, because you have to actually complete the activity of marking the level complete in order for it to be completed. So right now, there's no red drop down, and that drop down is not going to show up until I've completed the minimum prior. So I have to complete this. For this, what I have on the screen, I would have to complete my required task of successful collaboration, and I would have to complete 2 electives. Once I've completed both of these tasks, then I would see the red drop-down box that will allow me to move forward. That red drop-down box will show up and it'll first say activate. I will click on it to activate it, and then it'll say launch. So I'll click on it again to launch it. And then once I launch it, then it will come up for me to select that I've completed. So there's 3 steps that you would have to do to mark your level completion. And as you move forward, you'll see that every single level will do this. And this will send an email over to your Basecamp manager, which is either your vice president of education, your president, or your secretary. It'll send it to them in order for them to verify that you have completed the project. Now, a lot of going through pathways is the honor system, because nobody's standing over you saying, did you do the speech? Did you do the speech? Did you do the speech? So that's where the vice president of education should be helping to support you as you move forward in your educational goals. And they could attest and vouch for you that, yes, you've done everything that was required, you've done the required speeches to be able to move forward. I also encourage you, once you mark it's complete, reach out to your vice president of education to let them know, because it'll send them an email. And if it's something like the email gets caught up in all of the other junk mail that comes in and the spam and everything, it's real easy to overlook. And if it's somebody who doesn't check their email like as frequently as other people do, it may take a minute or 2 before they see it or get to it to approve it. So I would reach out to them to say, hey, I've completed my level. Can you go in and approve it? And then I also would just double check in your profile on Toastmasters International that they also have logged in Leadership Central and Toastmasters your completion of the level, because it's 2 steps that they have done. So while they can approve your level in Pathways having completed, International is not notified. So you don't have training credit in International as having completed. And that's where the second step has to get done in actual International website. So I would just monitor both of those to make sure they both get inputted so that you can get your credit. Now, one of the things that's changed since when Pathways first rolled out, Pathways used to be where you couldn't move on to anything until that completion was done. Well, now, after you submit it, The other levels, they are open for you to actually go and open up and look at. So you're not, so you can actually move forward. You can't get credit or mark the levels complete until everything is done in all the prior levels, but you can at least start going into the educational content in the next level and start moving forward to beginning the rest of your journey. And I think that this was a really good change that they've made, because I did have a time where I had completed my level, one of my levels, I think it was my level 1, and it took a while before my vice president of education got in to completing it, because they were still trying to understand how to manage as a base camp. But I could not even open my level 2 to even start working on any of the content, and it was a little frustrating. But now that is been eliminated, so that's one frustration you don't have to worry about. Okay, so getting the most out of pathways. Now, when you go into your levels, and I'm going to highlight level 1, because for everybody, this is the first experience in your journey, in your path. Everybody will have to do an icebreaker. Well, everybody will have to do the same speeches or same project or task in level 1. Whenever you go into any project, you will always have to do 3 things. You will have to take a preliminary assessment prior to starting the content of the project. That's to get a feel of how you measure yourself with the things that they believe that you're going to work on or learn as you move through that project. Then you'll have to do a final assessment after you complete the project. And that final assessment will be the same questions that they were at the beginning, but you'll be looking to see progress, that you've grown from where you were when you first started. And then you'll have to mark that project complete. It's the same concept as I mentioned before with marking a level complete. You have to mark the project complete. And this is one area that got me stumped up when I first started. After you complete your project, you have to do your assessment, and then there's an action where you have to mark that project complete in order for it to show up as complete. Because even after I did my assessment or I did my project, it still remained 75% complete, and I could not figure why I couldn't move forward. And then I learned that I have to actually do that final assessment and mark it complete to move on. Every path has to do an icebreaker. And this is another thing that had a lot of people from Legacy a little annoyed, because you're trying to understand why I got to redo an icebreaker. Well, I wanted to step back and really just look at what the true definition of an icebreaker is. Now, we use icebreaker as a way of introducing ourselves as a new person, but really the icebreaker is, the true icebreaker is a ship that's specifically built to breaking through and navigating through passages that are filled with ice to make way for you to move forward to a new destination. Well, when I think about why icebreakers are important to start a new path, is because every time you start a new path, you're at a different place in your journey. When I started my team collaboration path, I had a goal in mind, and I was at a different place in my life or in my journey, and I do that path. It gives me an opportunity to reflect on what I want to accomplish and where I want to go in that path. Then when I get to my next path and I do my icebreaker, I'm not the same person that I was. Well, I'm not at the same place. I'm saying Lavinia, but I'm not the same place that I was when I did the previous path, because I've learned from my previous path. I've mastered skills and strengths from my previous path. And now what I've mastered and learned, I take with me into this new path. So it gives you an opportunity to sit down and really reflect on where you are and where you want to go. And it's also a key tool to help you when you get to the end of your path, when in level 5, you have to do a reflection. And you're going to really have to look at your journey through that path and where you started and where you've grown. And having that icebreaker as a benchmark is really a good tool to have for you to measure your growth and measure your success and see your accomplishments so you can feel good about where you're going. So I actually, while I didn't like it in the beginning, I've actually grown to think, well, this is a really good thing to have because it makes me think about where I want to go. And then you have your evaluation and feedback project. Now, this is where you give a speech, you get feedback on that speech, and then you give a second speech using the feedback that you got from the previous speech. Now, you can choose any topic you want, and it's 5 to 7 minutes. You can present the same speech the second time, or you can present a different speech. You can have the same evaluator, or you can use a different evaluator. It doesn't have to be the same evaluator, so don't get caught up that the person that evaluated you the first time isn't there and you want to get your speech done. Now, I encourage you to use the same speeches, and the reason I do that is because it gives you something to measure by. And if you use the same speech, you can actually, you can measure the accomplishment in really utilizing or taking the feedback that you got and making the speech better. If you have the same evaluator, if possible, I would encourage it because that evaluator is going to give you an added perspective on what they were looking for or expecting when they gave you the initial evaluation. But again, it's not required. I just suggested in terms of being more effective. And then you have the researching and presenting speech, which is where it really goes into all the different methods of researching and digging into a topic or a concept and learning how to use. And this is really good as well to really just teach you some basic skills on just really how to go about putting together speeches, especially as you move further into the projects where you're going to have to rely a lot more on researching and presenting. But I wanted to really pull out the level 1 because as I've gone through my additional paths, I actually found that if I take the approach in level 1 that they've already built the fundamentals on evaluating and getting feedback on a speech, which we know as Toastmasters is one of the things that Toastmaster prides itself on is using evaluations to grow by. And then using the research for us to dig and broaden our knowledge and being able to take what we've discovered and be able to convey that is the whole concept of really learning how to communicate. Then apply that to how you approach all of your levels. So as you go through your levels 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, I encourage you to take that same approach across every project. When you get to your first project in level 2, do your project. It's going to give you an assignment, do that speech assignment, get your feedback, and then go back and redo that project using the feedback to show that you are mastering what the project is trying to teach you. Then I would encourage you to take it a step further and apply the researching and presenting to that same project where you do some deeper digging into what the concepts or what the principles are is being taught in the project. Maybe the project is on your management style and you learn that your management style is autocratic. I'm not pronouncing it correctly, but you learn what your strength is. But you also have another management style that you rank number 2. You may want to do some research on how those two management styles are similar and how they're different, and what areas you would find that you would want to use one versus the other, or maybe even some other questions came up as you went through that project. Use your researching and presenting to do some deeper digging to really start mastering the content. And you'll find that as you move through the levels, you'll really gain a deep appreciation, and you'll find that you'll have a lot to grow upon by utilizing the feedback from your evaluations and utilizing the research. And again, this is something that I think is going to be very useful for you as you get to your level 5, because in your level 5 project, when you're asked to go back and expound on what the key things are that you learned throughout this project, you've already done a lot of the analysis, a lot of the deeper digging to even have the fundamentals to do your capstone project. And I think that if you actually dig into the content, you'll find that you will really start seeing that you can master certain strengths and skills as you go through this, and you'll get a lot more out of it than just going through, reading through the projects, doing the high level, and just moving on. I always say you get out of it what you put in. If you put in a little bit, you're only going to get a little bit out of it. But if you really dig and go after becoming a master, you will become a master in it. So in terms of when we leave here, I know this was a lot for some people, and it may not have been enough for others, but we have a lot of resources. We have our District 40 website, Toastmasters website, where we have the pathways where you can actually go, and we have some links there and material, and we'll be updating that to really have some content there that's going to be supportive. You have the international under pathways, you have, which my circles are off, you have the facts and you have the accessible materials. Those are 2 additional places that are good places to go for resources. And there's a lot of previously asked questions where people have sent to international, or things that a lot of the pathway guides have experienced and learned that wasn't intuitive, where they've actually kept a list of all of those questions and all of the research that was done to answer those questions. You'll find all of that in the facts and accessible materials. And then there's within pathways itself, you go to at the top when you're in your transcript, you'll see where let's say tutorials and resources. There are a lot of videos there and additional material that you can read and go through that will also help walk you through some of the things that you may be stuck, places where you're stuck, and give you some additional guidance. And then there's the committee. You can send an email to pathwayschair@d40toastmasters.org. And with any questions, you can't find the answers, or you need additional help, reach out to us, let us know, ask us the questions. We don't have the answers, because I don't have all of the answers. We will do the research, ask around, and get the answers for you. If you have suggestions or things that could do to help improve your education experience and pathways, you need support, you want us to come into your clubs and really help give some support, reach out and let us know. But also give us your successes. Share with us how your journey is going, because this is how we learn. We learn from what you learned. And in that way, these resources are there. And we're working on some other ways to get some support out to the district to just help the journey go smoothly and be more effective and productive. So with that, like Scott, I'm not really sure how we on time. I think
a little bit over, but I appreciate you going through. I really like the way that you wrapped up there. I like the resources. And just to kind of give everybody, like you said, Lavinia, I think a lot of people are coming from a different perspective. Some people have a lot of information. Some people don't have hardly any information, and probably somewhere in between, many levels in between. So I think you did a good job of just kind of giving some of that overview, and hopefully each one of you has taken away some positives tonight, and you can move forward in your pathways journey. Yeah, it's been tough, but that's why we're here. The district is committed to, trying to get these webinars and communications out so that you can come up to speed better.
Right. We
I don't.
want to
Yeah.
start some ways to really get in there with people and help people, some one-on-ones. If you're going to the conference, we will have some pathway workshops. Actually, we're going to have pathway labs there. We'll have places you can make an appointment. You can have one-on-one time and really get some individual help if that will be helpful. So we're trying to come up with different ways to meet everybody's needs and preferences to help everybody get acclimated to the new tool.
I don't have any other questions in the chat. Robert had a question. Can this overview be used at club officer training? Do you have any comments
Yes,
around that?
actually, yes, it can be. If you notice, if you look at the content for the CLT, some of this is taken from there, but if you want to use this, we can. I think, Scott, you'll be sending a copy of the presentation, or
Yes. Yeah.
you're making it available?
Yes, I'll get that available. I'll put that on our Facebook page, and I can also put it on the members D40 site that you mentioned, the District 40
Yes.
Toastmasters.
Yes, definitely. But yes, definitely use this to help educate all of your clubs.
Yeah, we'll archive the presentation.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions? You can put them in the chat. I'm not sure if I should unmute everybody. I could. Let me see. Unmute all. See what happens. Actually, it's okay. I'm unmuting everybody, and I was really surprised the way that, for the most part, the voice quality was pretty good. I didn't see any major issues. There was a couple spots in there, but right now it's pretty good. I think I've unmuted everybody. If somebody wants to verbalize a question, you may do so. So the lines are open if you'd like to ask.
Where exactly will these be out on the website?
Sure. So it will be two places. We'll try to, actually, in three places. So we're going to put a copy of the video recording, that all the slides that she went through, that Lavinia went through, and also the audio. We're going to put that on our YouTube site, or YouTube channel. I will give everybody a copy of where that is, and we'll also be on our Facebook page. We'll put it in our files archive, and then we'll also put it on our members.d40toastmasters.org website. I put those in the chat.
Okay.
We want to make sure that it's in accessible places for everybody. Not everybody uses the same medium, so we want to put these types of communications out in several places so people can find them.
Well, since I can't see anything,
Yeah.
I'd appreciate just email them to me.
Yep. Yeah, I'll send it out to everybody. I should have a record of everybody on the bridge here tonight. So go ahead. Question?
And if you want to send an email over to Pathways Chair, it's PATHWAYSTHAIR at d40toastmasters.org. If you send us an email, let me know you want a copy, and I can forward it to you as well.
Thanks, Lavinia.
Yep. Somebody had a question?
I had a question.
Go ahead.
Yes. If I'm brand new, and if I chose to do the icebreaker first, do I still get my first path free?
Yes, your path is part of your membership.
Okay.
So the icebreaker in and of itself is one of the projects within the path. So if you start in
Got
the
it.
project, the icebreaker is not going to affect your path at all.
All right, thank you.
So along the same lines, though, if I want to change paths now, and it's probably been well over 30 days since I chose my path, I do that for an additional $20, or how does that work?
Well, if it's more than 30 days, you own that path. So there's no changing. You would, if you want to do a different path, you'd have to buy a new path.
Okay, I see.
But I would definitely take a look at the website that I put in one of the earlier slides, the D4TM
Right.
website. Let me go back up.
Yeah, I made a note of it. Yeah.
Yeah, d4tm.org/pathways, because that will show all of the projects that are available within that path. And while some people may have already started a path and it may not necessarily be what they thought it was or where they wanted to go, the great thing about pathways is that it is flexible, and you can actually tailor the path to meet your needs, or to actually meet or to work within the goals that you want to do. Because you can take a look at all the projects that are there and really work out how to use that to actually make your journey successful.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. Thanks.
Thanks for the question, Kathy. Anybody else? Jean, did you join, and did you have any comments?
Thanks, Scott. The only comment I have is fine job, Lavinia. And I was excited about Pathways, but now I'm even more excited about the Pathways journey. And so thanks so much. Looking forward to learning about Basecamp.
Yes, and we'll put together some additional sessions that will be more advanced too, because there are some additional bonuses within Pathways that you don't even get to see because you don't understand the basics. So we wanted to just stick with the basics, but we'll do some more advanced sessions also later on.
Thank you, Jean, and thank you, Lavinia. We will make a copy of the recording, and it'll be under the term Wednesday webinar. So keep an eye out for that. You can do a search if you're, I mean, the Facebook page is great out there. So just to make a really good plug for that, if you're looking for something specific in our Facebook page, there is a way to search for something that you're looking for instead of trying to scroll through all the posts and everything. So go ahead on the left-hand side, there's a way for you to search for what you're looking for. And if you're, put a search term like webinar or something like that, it should show some of the webinars that we've done, that we posted. So, and you can do that for other search terms that you're looking for on our Facebook page. All right, I appreciate everybody's time tonight. Thank you for being a good listener tonight, and I think that it was a good quality webinar for 30 plus people. I thought we did very, very well tonight. Thank you again for your cooperation and your patience, and we will chat with you sometime in the near future. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Lavinia. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Lavinia.
everyone.